Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Addictive Substances, written by Rewa. Have you ever been offered a drink of Naglai to appease your spirits on your visit to Halag colony? Ever wanted to try the Gradidan delicacy they call the Drops of Starlight? Or have you, stars forbid, found yourself consumed by the sudden urge to buy some of that beautiful-looking excellent charmer glitter dust? If the answer is yes to any of these questions, for your sake, I hope you've at least heard of me and my work before. Else, you could be laying dead in an alleyway, in a seedy underbelly of some insignificant planet, because you had no idea all of these things are deadly to most of the galaxy's population. But that's why I'm here, for my job, or well, you could call it a hobby, I guess. I'm not exactly getting paid for it. Is to compile the galaxy's legal and illegal drugs to one simple, easy-to-read database. If a substance is psychoactive, hallucinogenic, illegal, or even just tightly regulated on at least one planet, it's going to be there. It's simply called the Encyclopedia, and it's a required reading for any diplomatic position on several planets, as far as I know. They might be illegal, but that doesn't stop anyone from trying them. My only aim is to help others to do it responsibly, to keep accidents to a minimum. The substances are arranged by planet of origin and intended effect for easier browsing. They're all marked with little helpful notes about effects and side effects, chemical composition, addictiveness, and species it is immediately lethal for, even in a small concentration. Most of this comes from first-hand experience. Of course, I'm not doing anything illegal. My unique physiology as a taxodian allows me to flush any addictive or harmful toxins and chemicals from my body. Though I did have to undergo emergency mitosis once to clear my short-term memory of being remaining after effects of Tucson Red. Nasty stuff, that one. The galaxy is a large place, and it's only ever getting bigger, with one or more planets and species added to our rich tapestry of interspecies cooperation, wars, and conquest. None of those really concern me. But it does mean that I have an ever-growing backlog of requests and questions to look through. I always try to concentrate on the drugs brought in by the newest species first, instead of experimental drugs invented on planets long part of the galaxy. They have a bigger chance to wreak havoc, and no one wants another Yisliri Yazadi disaster. No one can stay on top of interplanetary politics, not even me. So the first time I heard of humans was in the question sent to me by a young Halag. I'm aboard a human ship as part of a diplomatic delegation, it started, and they keep offering me something called vodka. I haven't tried it, because I'm not sure if it's safe to do so. Do you have any advice? The question was right in the middle of many other inquiries, but since I've never heard of humans before, I gave it priority and started researching. What I found did not fill me with confidence. Humans were a species that had only newly discovered FTL travel, just a delec or two ago. And as such, barely anyone knew anything about them. They lived near the middle of the galaxy, had a home planet, some colonies on its moon, and a few others on near neighboring planets. But nothing else. No expensive empire, no militaristic need to conquer everything, just a young species trying to get by, just like most of us. I sent messages, I asked around for diplomats, I made travel plans, even though I was practically on the other side of the galaxy. It took me longer than it should have, but by the time the next elect rolled around, I finally had an answer. But I did not like it very much. Turns out humans willingly drink poison, ethanol to be more precise, and it's not a case where it's not poisonous for them. It does affect them, even in small quantities, and they simply don't care. It's a part of many humans' cultures to come together and, as common social interaction, have drinks containing ethanol. I answered the young Halag, hoping that I wasn't too late yet. Do not drink any of the vodka. If anyone in the human crew offers you a drink, ask if it has any alcohol in it. If yes, do not drink it. Ethanol poisoning is not pleasant. I also updated the site with a new category called Human, expecting to get more of these types of questions. All in all, ethanol wasn't the worst thing that they could have picked. In small doses, it's not lethal to most species, which is already a better rate than the kind of things that the exclama consume for fun. After that, a slow trickle of other messages came in. Some were asking about other ethanol-containing drinks, while others gave or asked for information on other substances. Slowly, I acquired human contacts too. They saw the necessity of my work and were very helpful. I got information on the most popular psychoactive substances amongst human, on their names, nicknames, addictiveness, and legality in different regions. They were forthcoming even with ones they didn't consider drugs themselves, but were harmful to most other species, such as capsaicin. The human section on my list continued to grow. I even found humans who were willing to sell them to me, though some only after I explained the relevant galactic laws that made my species exempt from regular substance controls. "So I'm not allowed to sell it, but you're allowed to buy it," asked a human who had taken up residence on the Zeti space station, when I explained. "That seems a little unfair. I mean, who are you supposed to buy it from if no one can sell it?" "Technically," I said, "if they can't prove that you were the one who sold it to me, there will be no problems." That seemed to mollify him a little. "Whatever, man," he said, and handed me a bag of white powder. "As long as it's for science." So, with humans in general being so forthcoming about, well, everything on their planet, telling me even things I didn't ask for, just in case it would help, it was certainly strange to find out that they were keeping silent about one thing. It came to me in whispers first, whispers of those who served on human ships in a diplomatic capacity, who came back addicted to something they had no idea existed, of it spreading like a self-generating mutating virus with no way to stop. The reports were conflicting. The humans each called it different names, is what everyone told me. They say the first time you try it, it's like a switch was flipped, and suddenly you can't live without it. And the humans, they don't ask money for it. They share freely and willingly, even if you didn't ask. It really did sound more like a virus than anything. And once the addiction set in, it was powerful. From everything I've heard, it sounded a lot more like Tussin Red than any other traditional drugs. Tussin Red is the only thing that has ever given me trouble before. It's an Alista specialty, a flower bred only for this purpose. Its smell is so unusual, so unlike anything else that once you've smelled it, you'll crave it forever. Tussin Red, in their language, simply means the planet's heart, as they consider it their most special achievement. And they are right, too. It's ruled by the number and one of the most addictive substances in the galaxy. But whatever these humans have brought in might just replace it. But I'm not one to steer clear of challenges. I've made it my mission to categorize every single addictive and psychoactive substance in the galaxy. I may not have known the name for this one yet, but I was sure one of my human contacts would know what I wanted. "I don't know," said the first human I asked. "This sounds weird as hell." She tapped her fingers incessantly on the table between us. "So, you say there's something extremely addictive, and is so easy to make that we just give it away. That doesn't track, no offense, but it really doesn't track. And it's something that we as a species enjoy. So, it can't be weird crap like carbon dioxide," she trailed off, looking into the distance in a manner that I've come to recognize as thoughtfulness. "It's definitely not carbon dioxide," I said. "It could be a gas, though, for all I know." "Helium," she offered. "Some people like to breathe it in, and we do have a feck ton of it on spaceships, more than really necessary." Somehow, I doubted a feck ton was an accepted unit of measurement, but I thanked the human for her advice by paying her another round for her non-ethanol containing an entirely legal poison of choice. It was not a very useful advice, though. Whatever this mystery drug of the humans was, helium was clearly not it. Next, I tried to speak to those who have received the strange human specialty from humans themselves. The first reposts were from diplomats, ambassadors, and soldiers, after all. There must have been someone who could tell me more about it, and who was preferably not several star systems away. Of course, diplomats were in high demand, so the closest I got was a pay swarm, some of whose members who had been sent aboard a human spaceship as a delegation. Yes, I know they dislike being called a pay, but they should really understand that those of us with mouths can't exactly pronounce their names. "Yes," the swarm buzzed as one. "We have seen the humans, and we have taken their gifts. They cannot speak as us, but in that moment we heard them as clearly as if they were one of us. We heard them, and we saw their hearts." "But what was it?" I asked. "It was life," said the swarm. The buzzing of their wings became oddly regular, undulating and crashing down like great waves. It reminded me of the ocean of my home, gone forever now, and dearly missed. It was in joy, and it was sorrow, and it was beauty. They were many made one, like us, and yet not like us. This was why it was so hard to talk to the Pehi. You get too many in a swarm, and it gets philosophical. Do you remember its name? If they said anything in response, it was lost under the ever louder sound of their small wings beating as one. The conversation was lost. Clearly, the swarm had found a subject that required internal conversation, and they deemed it much more interesting than the external one. I went home instead to think on what was said. The Pehi are a telepathic species, connected to the point where they are almost one mind, and they see null telepaths, most of the galaxy's population, as living a pitiable existence. Humans were not telepaths, but if I understood the swarm right, this drug could act as a rudimentary feelings transfer, maybe even simulate the sensation of being a hive mind. Though the Pehi were notorious for likening everything to telepathy, and their own species-wide telepathic link specifically. It seemed I had a part of the explanation now, but it refused to coalesce into a coherent whole. Whatever this thing was, it seemed to permeate all of human society, and yet when I asked, none of them knew what I could be talking about, or maybe they were all just very good liars. All my questioning was met with dead ends, repeated answers of, "Sorry, I have no idea," and "Are you sure this thing even exists?" Until one day I was greeted with a message from a human I briefly met in C-24 Binary Star System, far from both my home and hers. "This might sound insane, and it's going to be really awkward if I'm wrong, but I think I know what you've been looking for," the message said. "I'm staying in a drop-off point at the edge of Halag space because I've been banned from Zeti-2, long story. We could meet there if that's all right with you." Finally, someone with an answer. I half expected it to be another dead end, but you should never let an opportunity swim by. So after a little back and forth, we finally settled on a time and place, and I was on my way as soon as I could. This mystery drug had lured in countless beings already. There was no time to waste. Sophia Mendes met me right at the airlock as I entered the space station. Like most humans, she was taller than me by a good deal, and like most humans I have personally met, she seemed to be a restless sort of being, the kind whose mind works as fast as the speed of light. That part might not be endemic of all humanity, though. I have a rather limited pool of examples. When we met for the first time, she had proclaimed herself a world traveler. The world of humanity had suddenly become wider than she had ever dreamed of, and she wanted to see it all. "You will die," I had told her. "Maybe," she had answered, "but it will be a fun death." Now she was half a galaxy from her home and seemed to be enjoying it, setting aside the incident that resulted in her getting banned from Zeti-2. I mean, really, who hasn't been banned from Zeti-2? She greeted me with bared teeth, a human gesture of friendliness which often was mistaken for a display of force, and we fell into easy conversation. It was only a while later that I noticed that her vocal cords were producing an odd humming sound that seemed to serve no communicative purpose. "Sorry," she said, "I'm just excited. This is like introducing someone to Star Wars when they don't know about Luke's father." At this, the pattern of her humming changed. "Right." I didn't understand what she said, but it didn't seem too important. "So, are you sure you've got the right thing?" Sophia Mendes nodded enthusiastically. Yeah. It causes various intense feelings. It's remarkably easy to reproduce and completely unregulated in every country on Earth. We are happy to share it with anyone and are sometimes seized by intense cravings for it. It's kind of obvious when you think about it. So obvious that nobody has figured it out. Save for you. We have reached Sophia's temporary lodgings, a small one-person living block with a pattern-protected lock on the door. She used her fingers to draw a pattern, and the door opened with a hiss of hydraulic motors. "You have to understand," she said, continuing our conversation, "this kind of inherent part of all of human societies. When we entered the galactic proper, we were greeted by beings who were alien to us, but not as alien as we could have been. There were no insurmountable differences, or at least none that couldn't be solved given enough time. We simply never thought that this could be the one thing missing from all planets. The only reason I noticed is because I've been through half the galaxy." "So you weren't doing it on purpose?" was what I really wanted to know. "Nope," said Sophia. "It's a cultural thing, really. But I didn't call you here to talk about it." And she picked up a strange contraption from the ground, tangling up and trailing wires. It was made of metal and plastic, with 3 curved prongs, which had a flat disc on the end covered in some sort of foam. It looked more like a torture device than anything else. I had to modify this for you, actually, because, why do you have this many eyes and ears? At least my engineering degree is going to good use. And she set to explaining how it worked, sometimes peppering the engineering practices behind her modifications. Is this all necessary? I asked when she finished, feeling a bit more like my brain had spun around at its pace a few times. Seems like an awful lot of effort. Sophia shook her hand back and forth in an odd circular motion. Not technically, no. But this is the way no one else gets exposed to it. It's better like this, anyway. Trust me. She turned on her heels then and started rummaging through her belongings. So, what do you want to feel? I get a choice. Sure, she said enthusiastically. I've got, let's see, happy, sad, love, wonder, nostalgia, or, some things I'm not sure how to categorize, actually. This one could be grief, I suppose, she mumbled. Lots of choices, it seemed. Whichever you would recommend, I said, feeling anticipation well up within me. This promised to be an interesting experience based on those words, just like the kind I'd set out to experience all those years ago. That is to say, my reasons for starting the encyclopedia were, of course, entirely pragmatic. Any enjoyment I may get from the strangest drug trips the galaxy has to offer is only incidental, obviously. Sophia nodded. Oh, then, that's my favorite. It's probably a universal feeling anyways. Should translate well enough. She picked up the contraption, which was hopefully not a torture device, and turned it towards me. Her fingers wrapped on the side of it methodically, and she seemed to be fighting the urge to not grin. Wait before we start, I interrupted her one last time. What is this thing really called? All the reports I found said different names. Oh, probably a translation mistake, she said. We've got a couple thousand languages, you know. Well, what's it called in yours? In mine. And there, as she placed the strange machine on my head, she lost her battle against her facial expression and broke out in a wild, excited smile. We call it music. End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.